It's kind of crazy to think that the PlayStation 2 came out in the year 2000, before YouTube, before smartphones, before most people even had high-speed internet. Yet somehow, this little black box ended up hosting some of the most ambitious, graphically insane RPGs ever made. Games that looked like they belonged on the next generation of consoles. Games that made you stop, stare, and wonder, how the hell is this even possible? This wasn't just about flashy graphics. These RPGs pushed AI, lighting, scale, animation, and cinematic storytelling to levels we didn't think the PS2 could handle. In a world before patch updates and GPU boosts, developers had to squeeze out every last drop of power from that emotion engine. And what they managed to do was nothing short of magic. Today, we're looking at 10 RPGs that didn't just run on the PS2, they thrived on it. And you'll want to stick around because by the end of this video, you'll be questioning whether Sony's second console was actually just a disguised supercomputer. Number A, Final Fantasy XII 2006. Let's kick things off with an RPG so massive and detailed, it felt like the developers tricked the PS2 into thinking it was a PS3. Final Fantasy XII wasn't just a leap forward for the franchise, it was a statement. Set in the world of Ivalice, the game featured sprawling open zones that seamlessly transitioned without loading screens, something almost unheard of at the time. Unlike previous Final Fantasy titles, this one dropped turn-based battles and brought in a real-time MMORPG-inspired combat system. It even featured an AI gambit system that let you script your teammates' behavior, adding another layer of complexity behind the scenes. The environments were richly detailed with massive cities like Rabanastre, teeming with NPCs, layered architecture, and fluid animations. The world felt alive, and all of this was running on a console that, by modern standards, has less processing power than a cheap smartphone. Square Enix had to write a custom engine just for this game, and it paid off. Final Fantasy XII was one of the most visually stunning games on the PS2, and many still argue it was the most technically advanced RPG of its generation. 2 Xeno Saga Episode 1, Der Wills Match 2002. Back in the early 2000s, Monolith Soft had a vision, a multi-part space opera epic that would rival Star Wars in scope and ambition. In Xeno Saga Episode, I was the first step. This wasn't just a game. It was an experience. With over 8 hours of fully voiced, in-engine cutscenes, Xeno Saga blurred the line between anime and gaming. It pushed cinematic storytelling in RPGs to a new level, complete with camera movement, facial expressions, voice acting, and dramatic lighting. The world of Xeno Saga was pure sci-fi. Massive space stations, mechanized cities, giant mechs, and alien tech, all rendered in full 3D with incredible attention to detail. The UI was sleek, the environments were large and complex, and the characters had intricate designs and lifelike animations. Running a game like this on PS2 wasn't easy. In fact, it took so much out of the hardware that loading screens became a bit of a meme, but that didn't stop it from being a technical marvel. The PS2 wasn't meant for cinematic space sagas like this, and yet it somehow pulled it off. Dragon Quest VIII, Journey of the Cursed King 2004. When you talk about RPGs on PS2, Dragon Quest VIII is usually one of the first names that comes up, and for good reason. This game wasn't just a hit, it was a revolution for the Dragon Quest series. Level 5, the same studio that would later make Ni no Kuni, took the classic turn-based RPG format and blew it wide open. They built a fully 3D open world, wrapped in vibrant cel-shaded graphics that looked like a playable anime. Every town, dungeon, and field was rendered with love, and the game world was massive, explorable, and seamless. The PS2 had to handle animated spell effects, real-time weather changes, full voice acting, and even an orchestrated soundtrack, all while maintaining steady performance. And let's not forget that the game didn't just look great, it was addictive, charming, and deep. Somehow, this combination of old-school RPG mechanics and modern tech worked perfectly, and DQ8 became one of the most beloved RPGs of the generation. It shouldn't have run this well, but it did. #4, Rogue Galaxy 2005. Level 5 didn't stop with Dragon Quest VIII. They went even further with Rogue Galaxy, a game that looked and played like a launch title for the PS3. The sci-fi RPG featured real-time combat, massive planets to explore, flashy special effects, and best of all, no loading screens between zones. Yes, you heard that right, no loading screens in a PS2 RPG. It also featured a crafting system, monster collecting, weapon upgrading, and a dynamic lighting engine that reacted to your environment. Cutscenes blended seamlessly into gameplay, and the visual fidelity was just off the charts for the time. By 2005, most developers were ready to give up on the PS2's aging hardware. But Level 5 used every trick in the book. Stream loading, Real-time rendering, memory compression to make Rogue Galaxy feel next-gen. It was more than just a great RPG. It was a technical victory lap for the PS2. #5, Valkyrie Profile 2, Silmaria 2006. Tri-Ace had already impressed the world with Star Ocean 3, but with Valkyrie Profile 2, they went full mad scientist mode on the PS2's capabilities. This game featured a unique mix of 2D side-scrolling exploration with 3D real-time battles, but what really stood out was the visuals. The lighting, the particle effects, the smooth character animations, it looked absolutely stunning. Even the attack sequences looked like something out of a modern fighting game. The environments had reflective surfaces, volumetric fog, and atmospheric lighting, all on a console that wasn't even designed for those features. How did they do it? The secret lies in their custom engine, which used some incredibly clever rendering and memory management techniques. It's the kind of game you show to people who think the PS2 was just a DVD player. Silmaria was art, and it ran beautifully. 6. Shadow Hearts. Covenant 2004. Shadow Hearts. Covenant was the underdog RPG that came out of nowhere and punched above its weight in every way. Developed by a relatively small team at Nautilus, this game combined traditional turn-based combat with a unique timing mechanic called the Judgment Ring, giving battles a more interactive feel. But what really blew people away was the atmosphere. Set in an alternate history Europe during World War I, the game used Gothic art direction, cinematic camera angles, and moody lighting to create a world that felt dark, mature, and utterly compelling. The character models were sharp, the spell effects were explosive, and the environments were deeply detailed. Even the transitions between combat and exploration were near instant, which helped the pace stay smooth and engaging. It was like a visual novel, horror story, and traditional JRPG all rolled into one, and the PS2 held it all together. 7. Shin Megami Tensai. Nocturn 2003. SMT. Nocturn was the game that finally brought the Shin Megami Tensai series into full 3D, and it did so with style. Nocturn's minimalist design didn't just look cool, it hid a very complex set of visual effects under the surface. The cel-shaded demon designs were crisp and detailed, and the environments had this surreal, otherworldly quality that made the post-apocalyptic Tokyo setting feel like a dream or a nightmare. Spell effects were sharp, transitions were fast, and the UI was clean and responsive. But what's truly impressive is that it ran without hiccups, even when you were summoning giant demons and launching massive AoE attacks. For a game with such a weird, dark tone, it was technically elegant and smooth. 8. Radiator Stories 2005. Here's a hidden gem that did something most modern RPGs still struggle with. It made the world feel truly alive. Radiator Stories featured over 170 recruitable NPCs, and each one had their own daily schedule. They walked around town, went to bed, got into fights, worked in shops. It was a level of simulation you rarely see even in today's games. And somehow, the PS2 handled it all. The visuals weren't the most high-race, but the art direction was charming and consistent. The combat was fast and flashy with a semi-real-time system that allowed for positioning and coordination. It's the kind of game you remember because of how immersive the world felt. Not just because of the graphics, but because of how those graphics supported a living, breathing town full of people with their own lives. 9. Kingdom Hearts 2, 2005. This was the game that made people realize Square Enix and Disney was not a joke. Kingdom Hearts 2 didn't just push the PS2's limits, it smashed right through them. We're talking massive set-piece battles, real-time transformations, form changes with unique movesets, aerial combos, particle explosions, and it all ran like butter. The fight against 1000 Heartless is still remembered as one of the most jaw-dropping moments in PS2 history, adding gorgeous cutscenes, flawless animations, and seamless transitions between gameplay and cinematics. And you've got a game that looked like it belonged on the next gen, but it didn't. It was on the PS2, and it ran beautifully. 10. Okami 2006. Last but definitely not least, Okami. A game that made people rethink what art in video games could look like. Using a unique Sumi-e ink art style, Okami looked like a living Japanese painting. Every tree, every stroke of your brush, every attack was rendered in real time using a custom engine that mimicked brushwork and ink spread. It's visually stunning even today, and it ran perfectly on a console that was nearly 6 years old at the time. Okami combined real-time combat, environmental puzzles, and platforming with breathtaking beauty and fluidity. If there was ever a game that made the PS2 feel magical, this was it. So there you have it to 10 RPGs that made the PlayStation 2 feel like it was something more than a home console. These games weren't just about polygon count or texture resolution, they were about vision, creativity, and absolute mastery over limited hardware. They turned restrictions into innovations and gave us experiences we still remember today. If you grew up during the PS2 era, you already know, but if you didn't, go back and take a look. You'll be amazed at what developers accomplished with just 32 megabytes of RAM and sheer determination. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more deep dives like this. We've got more console miracles and retro breakdowns coming. Until next time, respect your old hardware. It worked harder than we ever gave it credit for.